Welcome to Straight Shoot News. I'm your host, Bandana Ed. Tonight's show is going to be who's on whose side. And is anyone representing we the people? We're going to look back to look forward tonight. Should be an interesting show you'll enjoy. So we are coming to you from the Merrimack Valley, where the shot heard around the world was fired. And the human race was changed. It gave birth to the way the human race would be ruled by kings, queens, dictators, czars, or not be ruled. The document that it gave birth to changed it all. Put the power in the hands of the people. It took them away from tyrants. And these same tyrants have been working ever since that day to regain power. And that's what we're seeing happen, take place today. So tonight, all the material will be used under fair use laws. And here we have no time for the carnival barkers who are taking advantage of street talkers. Social media is full of them. The news media is full of them. Selling everybody false narratives. And you'll see, it'll be explained in the short clip we have for you tonight. And right now, barking at the moon is doing nobody any good. We need to be uniting. We have this document that needs to be protected at all costs. And they're coming after it. And without it, when this is gone, life will be totally different. So we have to do everything we can to protect this at all costs. So tonight we're going to start off with the problem we're seeing today. It basically comes down to it's very simple. Biden's puppet masters put the Obama band back together. For those of you who are just beginning to pay attention, you need to understand that. Those of you who think they know what's going on without researching any history, we're going to try to enlighten you on all different forms of history tonight. The Obama ban must be stopped. We'll go further back even than Obama. But in the last decade, a lot of damage has been done. A lot of things that were brought to light from the Trump presidency. So, we're saying that we're going to begin tonight with the oil wars and how green energy plan is intentionally designed to destroy our country, our way of life. And has nothing to do with climate change. It has nothing to do with saving the planet. It has to do with inflicting tyranny on the human race. Let's get that clear. And once you understand that, and everything taking place will become so much clearer to you. And you'll see the way how we combat what's taking place. Our second part, we're going to look into the Biden crime family. Our third part, we're going to dig a little further and deeper into this Ukraine history because they're using Ukraine and the people of Ukraine as a weapon. And neither side are the good guys. It's all about the people. So, in saying that, we're going to start tonight with explaining about how once people violate their constitutional oaths, their constitutional duties, they don't have any more power to pass laws. They can't override the U.S. Constitution. The courts have the power to strike it down. And when the courts don't work, it comes down to what we've been telling you. The last checks or checks and balances lie within we the people. And that's in our Bill of Rights. So, with the primary function of the federal government being national security, we have to take a look at oil, fossil fuels, energy. This encompasses a wide range of elements today. We have to ask ourselves, why would the Biden administration be destroying the lifeblood of our economy and our national security by going after the fossil fuel industry? You know, oil and gas are required to defend ourselves militarily, you know, feed our nation, ranges from fertilizer production to operating farm equipment to the transportation of the food supply. The food supply that comes in, so many just take for granted. I mean, any agency or regulatory enforcement agency that has a part in any of this has no regulatory authority or enforcement authority to stop anybody from producing food. Last week we showed you about they want you to register your gardens. I mean, if that isn't trying to, how would you say it? Inflict control over just basic things like food that you need to live every day. I mean, that's a wake-up call in itself. If that still doesn't wake you up, then you're just too numb. You might be too numb to survive. So when we begin, we're going to begin with a clip here from, it discusses how the Saudi princesses and OPEC, they turned around and decided to hike the prices on U.S. consumers for their oil, which, by the way, really wasn't a big deal once we had our oil independence. You know, they're gonna lower prices for Europe. They're going to leave them stable for Asia. So where does that bring us? Where does that bring us, and what are they trying to do? Let's listen to this clip and then we'll discuss it.
Modern day wars are not just limited to armed conflicts. They can be fought in other domains as well. Our cover story tonight is about one such battle. This story is about oil. This week, OPEC Plus decided to slash oil production. OPEC Plus is an alliance of major oil producers. The objective behind the cuts is clear. OPEC Plus wants the prices to rise. And there is one superpower that is going to feel the pinch more than the rest: the United States. Saudi Arabia has rejigged oil prices for all regions. For Europe, the prices have been lowered. For Asia, they remain unchanged. What about the US buyers? Well, they might need to brace for a hike. Saudi Arabia is jacking up the prices for the United States, that too for all grades of oil. Why such special treatment for US buyers? The answer is very obvious. The fight between the United States and Saudi Arabia is out in the open. US President Joe Biden did try to repair the relationship back in July. Remember this fist bump? It now seems to be backfiring on him. Both sides are engaged in a bitter war over oil now. On Gravitas tonight, we will tell you all about it. And we begin with the price hikes. Saudi Arabia state oil giant Aramco has a new rate card. Like we told you before, Europe will be paying less. For Asia, the prices remain steady, but US buyers will have to pay more. How much more? 20 cents per barrel. For all.
There it is. It's right there. It tells you. US will pay more. Now, there's a lot more than she's talking about involved. So you'll find out as we go along here. I'll explain it to you at the end. what the problem seems to be that they're not talking about. Why, I don't know.
All grades of oil, gas prices in the United States have already started rising. This week, the price for 1 gallon touched almost $4 in the United States. The hike is supposed to convey a geopolitical message as well. Saudi Arabia is the de facto leader of OPEC and OPEC Plus. That's why Joe Biden went there. He wants oil producers to pump more oil into the market because that would keep the prices low. Saudi Arabia and OPEC Plus have ended up doing the exact opposite. They will now supply less oil, and the move to hike prices for US buyers is like rubbing salt on the wounds. Joe Biden is facing some tough questions now. Like, was his visit to Saudi Arabia just a waste of time? Here is how the US president chose to answer the question.
No, the trip was not essentially for oil. The trip was about the Middle East and about Israel and rationalization positions. But it is a disappointment, and it says that there are problems.
Indeed, there are problems for Joe Biden. He is under pressure to take on Saudi Arabia now. American lawmakers want Joe Biden to review Washington's ties with Riyadh. Consider some of these statements. Leading Democrat in the US Senate, Dick Durbin, has spoken out. He says Saudi Arabia is conspiring with Putin to punish America with higher oil prices. Bernie Sanders.
Dick Durbin. This is Dickie Durbin. Now think about this. These people make their living. Their economy depends on oil. Dick Durbin votes.
Has spoken out too. He called the cuts by OPEC a blatant attempt to increase prices.
Bernie Sanders, another one. Think about this. They want to destroy the fossil fuel industry. And they want these people to help them.
Three demands. Put an end to OPEC. Sanders calls the alliance an illegal price-fixing cartel. He also wants America to eliminate military assistance to Saudi Arabia. Already, 3 Democrats have introduced a bill in the US Congress. What does it say? Call US troops in Saudi Arabia back and remove American defense systems from.
If they pull back the US troops from Saudi Arabia and defense systems, who does that benefit? Who are the enemies of Saudi Arabia? The Iranians would love that. So what is the Biden administration?
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says all options are on the table.
As to the relationship going forward, we're reviewing a number of response options. We're consulting closely with Congress.
What about Saudi Arabia? What will be Riyadh's response? The Saudis seem to be prepared for a confrontation. Earlier this week, the Saudi energy minister firmly defended the price cuts.
Our priority now is stabilizing market. Now, we could be accused of wanting to influence market in a negative way. That's everybody's prerogative. You and others will see how we conduct ourselves in the months to come.
Experts are unanimous in their verdict. The production cuts help Russia more than America. Here is how. The West might have slashed ties with Russia, but as an oil producer, it still remains a part of OPEC+. Production cuts will cause the prices to rise. That will fill up the coffers of Moscow and Riyadh.
So there you go. They're going to profit. OPEC+. Russia profits. We send money to Ukraine to fight Russia. Why aren't we producing oil here? Think about that. This is a twisted game.
Suffers a major setback. The US president is running out of options. So far, he had dealt with the production cuts by releasing more oil from America's strategic reserves. But now, even that stockpile is shrinking fast. Just to put this simply, there are no easy options before Joe Biden. The United States will hit back, that's for sure. But for now, round one in this oil war goes to Saudi Arabia.
President Biden will release
There
10
you go. Now, let's decipher that a little bit. Okay. These countries depend on oil to fuel their economies. That's how they take care of their people. And the U.S. is into all this climate change crap, which is a direct threat to these countries' well-being. I mean, Blinken's saying all options are on the table. He didn't mention anything about U.S. oil production. The Saudis are playing the hard game. They need to. It's about their country. What she didn't mention in her video was Trump had made an agreement to send all these arms to Saudi Arabia. They paid for them. Great for the defense industry in the U.S. A lot of people working. Biden comes into office, and on the first day he rescinds sending arms to Saudi Arabia. They want to make a deal with Iran. Saudi Arabia and Iran are at odds with each other. So Saudi's playing hardball. They don't care who they're going to hurt. You know, there's a lot that's going on here. And funding and money is a tool. Oil is a weapon. Logistics win wars. So we're draining our emergency reserve. If we have to go to war, how weak will this country be? I want you to keep something else in mind here. And here's something that no one seems to be talking about. We've got a wide open southern border. We don't know who's coming in. So this game that they're playing with oil becomes even more of a risk. Because if we have to rely on ramping up daily oil productions to fund a war machine for our national defense, of all these people running around in this country, we don't know if enemies of the U.S. have sent them in here. Say they sabotage these plants, we lose logistically. Why did in World War II, to give you a little historic background, why did the Allied forces go after North Africa and the Middle East to try to take down Hitler? That was their first big offenses. They needed to cut off the fuel supply to Germany so they couldn't run their war machine. It's all in history. Putin's got plenty of oil. He may not have the best armed forces, and we really don't think he does. But, you know, the whole thing seems like it's a pre-planned thing. This isn't by accident. And don't let the media fool you into thinking this is because of stupidity. These people aren't stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. And, I mean, are we going to be ready for an attack within? These same people also want to disarm the public, defund the police. They're forcing people out of the military service because a lot of them are intelligent enough not to want to take a risk their body on a Fauci experiment. They experimented with our enemy, Communist China. It's like a perfect pre-plan to destroy our country. That's something no one's talking about, but we're talking about it here. We want you to consider it. Now, yeah, let's listen to what Trump's former advisor Mulvaney had to say. Roll this clip.
million more barrels of oil from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve next month, following OPEC Plus's decision to cut back production, 2 million barrels a day. The announcement coming just one day after Fox Business White House correspondent Edward Lawrence pressed the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, on future releases of that oil in the Strategic Reserve. Watch.
The Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the runoff or release of 1 million barrels a day ends at the end of this month. Is there any conversations about releasing more oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? How's the president going to keep the supply up?
So we're not considering new releases from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve beyond the 180 million, which is what you're speaking about the 1 million that the president announced months ago. We don't have anything more to share, or we're not going to be considering new releases.
Joining me right now is former acting White House Chief of Staff and former OMB Director Mick Mulvaney. Mick, good to see you this morning. What's your reaction to all of this news? The president continues to release oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve as a way to keep oil prices down. And now we get OPEC Plus saying we're going to cut back on production. That's going to send prices higher.
Yeah, good morning, Maria. Thanks as always for having me. When I watch that video, what I immediately think of, as having been inside a West Wing, is that what that tells you when the press secretary yesterday says they're not preparing or considering any additional releases, and then they immediately do it 24 hours later, it means that they didn't expect these cuts. These cuts came as a surprise to them. They must have had some insight that said it wasn't going to happen, so they got caught flat-footed. If they knew those cuts were coming or expected that they would have come, they would have developed a plan beforehand and immediately announced the SPR reserve as sort of a way to blunt the damage to the economy. But that didn't happen. What that means is that they have no idea what's going on, and they had no anticipation in advance that this cut was going to come.
Well, I don't know how they have no idea, Mick, really. I mean, look, we're now hearing that the president may relax sanctions on Venezuela. I mean, we're talking about this need and this dependency on overseas players for oil as the president continues to attack the fossil fuel industry. The U.S. Oil and Gas Association is fighting back. They mock the Biden administration. Here's this tweet yesterday from that group. They say, OPEC says no, SPR options all but gone. The White House has one option left, and it is the one option they should have never turned away from in the first.
There you go. U.S. oil production. This is not being done by accident. They are coming after our way of life and us. We're in a war. And if we don't get the U.S. together and stop these people,
that is U.S.-based oil and gas
we got a problem. Let it roll.
Industry. Life comes at you pretty fast. Your reaction?
The reaction is this: is that they're absolutely right. Is that the prices are going up because of supply and demand? Right? There's no reason we cannot be supplying more gas and oil into our own markets. We were net exporters of energy under Donald Trump. The Biden administration has completely tied our hands. But go back to the point about them being flat-footed. I just think they don't understand the world. One of the stories, I happen to be in London, one of the stories that's getting a lot of attention here is that one of the reasons that the Saudis especially drove this decision to reduce the output is they're upset with the Americans over the continued negotiations with Iran on the nuclear deal. To Saudi Arabia, to the UAE, a nuclear-powered Iran is an existential threat, and it's one of the things that's undermining the relationship. One of the reasons that the Saudis could not be counted on like they were in the past is that they're not happy with the Biden administration. And I think the Biden administration doesn't get it. So, yeah, I stand by the proposition that they got caught flat-footed. They don't understand what's happening in the world. They think everything is the way they think it is, and everybody is sort of going green energy, that everybody's against Russia. That's simply not the case. It's a naive group of people running the country right now, and we're paying the price for it. You're going to see probably 30 cents additional per gallon between now and the election. My guess is this probably makes 5-10 seats go Republican in the House simply because of the ineptitude of the Biden administration.
Well, you say naive, but also unprepared. I mean, every day we hear another gaffe, whether it's from Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, and you're talking about Iran. Look, this president wants to strengthen the Iranian leadership's hand now at the time that the Iranian people are in the street chanting death to the supreme leader. He's apparently on on his deathbed, but why would we want to strengthen leadership's hand rather than working with or standing by for the Iranian people? And it's not just the Saudis upset with Biden, it's also the American people. His approval rating is plummeting, Mick. The Reuters Ipsos poll finds that only 40% of Americans actually approve of his job performance with just over a month until the midterm elections. Does this play out positively for the Republicans in the midterms? What do you think this approval rating means in these upcoming elections?
What it means is that the voters, and many swing voters, folks who watch your show regularly probably have already made up their minds on how to vote. Folks who watch other networks make up their minds, but a lot of folks don't make up their minds on how to vote until the last couple of weeks. And the price of oil, the price of gasoline, the price of food is going to make a big difference. As Bill Clinton correctly said a generation ago, what's the biggest issue in an election? It's the economy, stupid. And it is. This is going to cost the Democrats seats. Because people are starting to realize that elections do have consequences. And when you elect Joe Biden and the Democrats, your cost of living goes up because of their policies and because of their ineptitude. So I think that's what you're seeing in the approval ratings. It's historically low. I don't think you'll see the type of red wave that we had in 2010 because we already have a lot of the seats.
There you go. Well, like you just said, you're not going to see the red wave. And people are still relying on politics. This goes far beyond politics. Maria gets it about how the world goes. Mulvaney, he's a great advisor for Trump. Like I said, Trump wasn't just a pure genius. He put some good people around him. And then he had the bad people that sold them out for whatever cause they're into. But in any case, it's up to we the people here. I mean, as far as regulatory agencies turning around and stopping production, it's time to move forward. It's time to move forward without the Biden administration. This is no accident. Like I said earlier, this is pre-planned. This is pre-planned takedown. And we're going to get into that further as we go on here. But let's hear from one more Trump advisor before we do. Roll that.
Plus went ahead and slashed 2 million barrels a day from production, despite the pathetic entreaties from the Biden administration. The president and his minions went begging, hat in hand, and they got nothing. Because of Mr. Biden's misbegotten, unscientific, hysterical obsession over climate change and his holy jihad against American fossil fuels, we now find ourselves once again dependent on the Middle Eastern oil sheiks. But wait a minute, it's OPEC Plus nowadays. That includes Russia. That's another OPEC Saudi stick in the eye to America, since higher oil prices will help finance Vladimir Putin's war against the Ukraine. In 2 years, really less than 2 years, Joe Biden has taken this country from former President Donald Trump's energy independence or dominance to a state of energy dependence on our adversaries. We have gone back to the energy stone age. Remember all the great knee-knocking fears surrounding financial markets and the economy in the 1970s, the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s, when every OPEC meeting was surrounded by high-drama speculation because the rest of the world feared oil shortages and sky-high prices? As recently as 2008, not so long ago, oil jumped to $150 a barrel, largely because of OPEC, and OPEC price spikes would inevitably lead to high inflation and deep recession. That is the situation Joe Biden's Green New Deal policies have put us into once again. It is a terrible situation. It is an unnecessary situation. It damages our energy security and our national security. You know, only a few Trump years ago, the U.S. was producing slightly more than 13 million barrels a day, outstripping the Saudis and the Russians and everybody else by a wide margin. Our best-in-the-world energy industry was calling the tune on oil and natural gas and gasoline. Now we are whistling in the graveyard. This is what Biden hath wrought. According to the Energy Information Administration, We should be at 14 million barrels a day right now, on our way to 15 million barrels a day by 2024. Instead, despite record high prices, we are at 11.8 million barrels in the last monthly reading this past summer. Again,
There you go. They're lying. They're saying they're producing and we're producing more. Biden's straight out lying. There's the figures right there. We're producing less. We should be producing more. And now that our allies in Europe needed more, we should be even producing even more. Don't take my word for it. There's the stats.
Pandemic, we were over 13 million. So we're about 1.5 million barrels short. We're also over 1 million barrels short of gasoline. All this thanks to Biden's war on fossils. Another point, the Baker Hughes rig count, an indicator of oil and gas drilling, is only 604 today. It was over 800 during the Trump years. That's how our private companies have been forced to cut back because of Biden's war on permitting, drilling, fracking, pipelining, refining, and LNG terminals. Closing the fossil spigots has jeopardized not only the economic welfare of our citizens here at home, but our national security posture abroad. We were an energy powerhouse. Biden now has given that powerhouse title back to OPEC. On top of that, Biden is destroying the Strategic Petroleum Reserve that was originally meant to pitch in its sales during temporary natural disasters and to supply oil during wartime emergencies or OPEC oil embargoes. Remember them? Instead, Biden has depleted roughly 50% of SPRO for political election year price fixing to suppress oil gasoline costs at the pump. Here, too, the Saudis have outwitted him because by cutting production, the Bidens are going to have to pay high prices to refill the petroleum reserve, hoisted on their own petard. Ironically, as OPEC moves oil prices in the so-called October surprise and gas prices edge higher, it is the Biden Democrats who are going to pay a price at the polls. And this whole catastrophic scenario is homemade by these global warming central planners who have done so much damage to our economy and to our country.
No, basically what these people have done is committed treason. They've committed treason. This is our national security. He said it. I've been saying it. But who am I? That was one of Trump's advisors. This is serious. And then Biden gets up there and his black, gay, lesbian, whatever she's supposed to be sister lies to you. He hides behind trying to play stupid because he basically is. His handlers are telling him what to do. You got to find out who his handlers are. In our show, we're going to unwind this tonight as we go step by step. But basically, we're going to have a part on the Ukraine, too. Russia is part of OPEC+. How can you go begging to your enemy, who's supposed to be Russia, call Russia out, jump in the face of the Saudi princes, and then turn around and ask them for help? I want to know, where these people like Biden and other people in his administration, where did they come from? Who coddled them to think that you can go spit in other people's faces around the world and then go to them for help later? There's no sense of consequence. I got a feeling that's what's being raised in our society too. And we need to reverse that. We need to get back to a reality, a firm reality. But don't give up hope yet, because at the end of the segment, I'll explain the good that can come of all this. But remember, do not surrender any of your rights in here. And anybody who's violating them has no authority over you. But this next clip, now here's a nice shot one, because we should all know by now that communist China are the ones funding Russia. They're buying up all the excess energy. That's why, to me, this pipeline doesn't mean anything, because Russia really doesn't need it. they're going to sell, and they've made the arrangements to sell all their energy to China. Who needs the energy bad? They're building coal plants over there. We're screaming about, oh, the planet. Well, we all live on the same planet, people. So unless you want to go invade China, then you're going to get exactly what's happening right now. But how many people have to die over this green energy thing? How many people are not going to be able to eat? How many people are going to freeze to death? In wartime, what happens? Because watch, we're already in a war. It's just some of you don't want to recognize that. We need to pump up our fossil fuel supplies and pump them up quick. Because what a lot of people still don't know is China hasn't only turned around and they're using Russia as their, I don't know, what word would you want to use? Okay, they'll buy the energy, they'll let Putin play his game. But back in 2013, Russia had no money. They were in rough shape. Their armed forces, everything was rusting away, rotted away. China gave them billions of dollars in loans to rebuild their military. Why? China and Russia have never been like buddies. Yeah, they were both communists, but they never really got along. A lot of skirmishes we never heard of, but they were taking place on their borders back to all these Cold War days. So why would Russia want to have, why would China want to have Russia build up their military? Think about that. Because now we're going to show you a little clip from some very intelligent people. And this short clip is going to explain exactly what's going on. And I want you to listen closely to what this man has to say. Roll that.
The Chinese Communist Party has a saying when it comes to their warfare, psychological warfare operations, and other forms of subversion: strangle you with your own systems. In other words, observing how different countries operate, what is controversial within their systems, how does their system function, how can we use those systems to twist things around, to cause chaos, to mess things up, to use it against them. You say you believe in free speech? We'll have protests in your own backyard calling you out. You say you believe in free press? Well, we'll start up state-run media in your country, and we'll use those state-run media to lie to your population, to spread our propaganda. That's what they do. You believe in free markets? How about we bring state-run companies that can sell below cost and put your companies out of business and take over your industries? That's what they're doing, right? Strangle you with your own systems. And what is controversial in the United States? What is most controversial? Racism. This race narrative, they know they can use it. They've been doing it for a very long time. There are different groups, for example, Committee of 100 in the U.S., where every time a Chinese spy is arrested, they call it racism, because they know that's what we're sensitive to. The Chinese military has a doctrine on this, the three warfares doctrine: psychological warfare, media warfare, and legal warfare. This is publicly adopted into their military doctrine. This is part of their military system. Now, what are these? Psychological warfare is not necessarily lying to you. Psychological warfare is altering how you interpret information. And so when you see a virus coming out of China and people say this virus came out of China, if you call it the Chinese virus, they want to use this and twist it around and say it is racist if you talk about the origin of this virus. What is media warfare? Media warfare is the manipulation or control of outlets of information, not just news outlets, but say social media, online platforms, the ability to speak openly. Anything that would allow people to communicate would be a target of media warfare. And what is legal warfare? Legal warfare is a manipulation of international legal systems. The Chinese Communist Party, for them, this is adopted into their military code. This is war fighting to them.
Thank you. Yesterday, Kevin McCarthy told us he essentially feels that you are holding House Democrats hostage from speaking out about the border crisis because of the way you whip on the House floor. How would you respond to that, and do you believe the border is secure?
Well, I believe that we have to have a secure border, and I think that we are trying to address the president has a plan to address that.
You just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe. Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other, in the possibility of truth, the game's won.
There you go. You just heard that. Short segment. Even we had to put Nancy Pelosi there. That was a flat out lie. These two people should be sitting on a stand being questioned for treason. I mean, I'll go back to the Bush, Clinton, and Bush before him, and I can give you a whole history on them. But these two put it into high gear. And Trump exposed that. I think Trump was some giant hero. All he did was go back to Reagan policies. Like I said, once again, none of this is being done intentionally. That's just being done because of stupidity. That's a great way to cover up. The Chinese have been studying exactly how to take us down by using our own freedoms against us. You know, like I said, you can go back to the first Bush administration for all this. Reagan exposed a lot. Trump adopted Reagan's programs. A lot went on behind Reagan's back, like I've told people before, between Oliver North, who became one of Fox's big war heroes on TV. You know, so just like Newt Gingrich, the guy who militarized the police and caused a lot of concerns. Oh, they all compromised. When you go back to going from Reagan to Bush, Bush overlooked the fall of the Soviet Union. We're going to be talking about that in part 3. Okay. But in any case, at that time in history, there was a choice to be made. The US was the only remaining superpower. Yeah, Russia had their nukes, but they were all unorganized. They needed help to survive from the US, and we gave it to them. But there was this other country in the background called China. So we could have moved towards world peace. But the Bush and the military complex that Eisenhower warned us about, we'll have a clip from his daughter in the third, I think there's the third segment. But in any case, they decided that they needed to build a new enemy, one to replace the communist Soviet Union, which could have fell in harmony with the rest of us. Still had guys like Putin in the background who had other ideas, but got control and took advantage of the situation. Very self-serving man. And they chose to build up communist China. It wasn't just Bush, Bill Clinton, they let all top nuclear secrets go to China, and they got paid well for it. China had no problem paying for the information. And they had to rapidly ramp up a new foe. But what's happening now, there's a positive fact here, because evil always destroys itself. But the problem is the cost to the human race. And that's all that remains to be determined right now, because they will destroy ourselves. Although the media around the world and the US paints a bleak picture of the actions of Saudi Arabia's descent, what they really sent was a wake-up call relating to the evils of the green energy movement. which is devastating to the human race as a whole. Like we explained earlier about how you need all these fossil fuels to make fertilizer, ship products, do that. You are not going to replace it by putting them up a windmill, or solar power, or even nuclear power. It's going to take, I mean, we got people selling that again. Yeah, all of it is good. We need all these energy because the world has grown, the population has grown, people have gotten used to conveniences, electronics. You need electricity. You just can't turn a switch and say, we're all going to go green today. But as I said, unfortunately, there's going to be a little more devastation coming. This winter is going to take its toll on a lot of people. And there's going to be a decision that has to be made between more war and freedom. And that's what's coming our way. I mean, the battle is going to heat up. It's going to be to an unimaginable level for those who don't understand what's really going on and listen to their crazy little kids because they're cute. But your kids aren't cute anymore. These adults aren't cute anymore who think you just go over and stomp all over the world and say, well, no, I want your help. No, the world doesn't work that. I want to know who raised these people or who even left them in power. Because what the Saudis just did is, like I said, a wake-up call. They're trying to be the adults in the room. If you listen to the full speech their energy minister gave, he explains it. He explains that's their lifeblood. They're going to regulate the market. And you have people like Bernie saying, oh, we need to ramp up green energy. Well, all the green energy stuff is being made in communist China. So if you heard, if you could retain what was said in that clip, that was one of the thought leaders, I think that the Hillsdale College crew that really just gave you the basic history and the facts. He told you. So it's up to us now. It's up to we the people. It's up to the fines by oil companies. This administration is going to go. Yeah, we need to give the Republicans a chance in Congress to do something. But will they do anything? Can they do anything? If they don't, like I said, the last check of the checks and balances that our founders designed was put in the hands of we the people. And it's time to start confronting people. Because human race is at stake. This is a document designed to free it, and they don't want this to exist. And saying that, we're going to stop here. We're going to give you a breakdown of a very important interview that Tucker Carlson did, Bob Olinsky. He did one a year ago. He did 2 years ago, and he's going to do one now. And we're going to try to explain some factors in there of how to try to break down and take away this. It goes back to exactly what you heard what the Chinese communists do, which is kind of telling me that we have in this Biden administration are communists. They're not stupid. They know what they're doing. Don't be deceived. With that, we'll move to part 2.